Ford is filing for some interesting patents for their upcoming F-150 all-electric vehicle, which they have teased in the past with these electric prototypes hauling a giant train, like we all do with our pickup trucks. And Ford wants to get this electric pickup truck out to the market sometime around mid-2022, so that means they're not particularly early to this field. It seems like Rivian, Lordstown Motors, and the Cybertruck all will likely end up beating them there first. But Ford sells more pickup trucks than anyone right now, okay? They sell some of the top-selling vehicles in the United States, so it's very interesting to think about what is the top player, what is the most popular pickup truck maker going to do to combat all of these up-and-coming electric pickup trucks. And one of the patents they're working on is a gas-powered generator that would drop in the back of the bed, and I am very torn on this subject. I'm very split down the middle, but keep in mind, moving forward, I am a Tesla fanboy, so if you're expecting me to defend this, you're probably not going to enjoy this video that much. But I will try to be fair at least a little bit in this subject and admit that, gasoline is a very quick way of transferring energy. There's not a lot of supercharging and level 3 chargers that can transfer energy to a vehicle as fast as typical gasoline can, but we have to also take a step back for a second and admit how hypocritical and backwards does this seem, right? Ford is making all these internal combustion engine based pickup trucks, and other EV companies are working on all electric options like Rivian and the Cybertruck, and we're all getting into this market of, okay, how can electric vehicles now become workhorses and become practical and functional, and how fast will they be able to charge, and where can they go, how many chargers do they have access to, what's the range of these vehicles, what's the power efficiency. And Ford at the same time is working on an accessory, apparently. It's not going to be built into the vehicle. It'll just be something you can either buy or rent out on occasion that basically allows you to stop at gas stations and fill up your gas generator that in return charges up the pickup. Like, at first glance, at least, we have to admit that sounds very dumb, right? It just feels very backwards. That's like, electric is the future, let's move on to electric. But if the range is too hard, then yeah, just pour gas into your electric car, and the gas will turn into electricity. I know, I get it. It feels very backwards. Though I've been reading a lot about what people are saying and different people's opinions and takes on the field, and some people think it makes a bit more sense than we make it out to be, because for everyday driving, the kind of weekend warriors that are driving around town, making trips to Home Depot and back, and you use your pickup truck for basic stuff like that, all electric would be fine, but then on occasion you would just rent out from a Ford dealership this gas generator if you were doing some kind of, cross-country road trip and you were going to be towing a big trailer that was going to significantly impact your range, so you just wanted a range extender option that allows you to stop at gas stations. And it's a fair point that a lot of charge stations right now don't have very many trailer-friendly options. A lot of Tesla superchargers would require people to unhook their trailers and back into the stall just so that they can charge, and that's going to probably continue to be a big issue with the Cybertruck. And a lot of the Electrify America charge stations typically don't have that many stalls in the first place, so it's going to be very, very hard to find pull-through charge stations that make it fairly easy to gain that energy back into the vehicle, and allowing your electric pickup to, on occasion, support gas stations when you need it to. I guess I can somewhat see the argument, or maybe see a market there of people that might want to utilize that. For 90% of the year, you're just going to be using the battery and driving around town. But when you want to take those big, great distant trips, and you're going to be towing something that's really, really heavy, and your range is going to be significantly depleted, knowing that you'll be able to stop at a gas station and go further could help range anxiety with some non-EV owners currently that are used to driving around their internal combustion engine pickup trucks. So I somewhat get it, but in my opinion, I think that's too short-term of a solution. In other words, what I'm trying to say is this is a 3 to 5 year solution for getting people to buy your electric pickup truck, whereas Tesla or Rivian would be the type of company that would look at more of a 10 to 20 year solution. And I can guarantee you Tesla would never make this type of option for the Cybertruck. Their goal is like, nope, we don't need gas, you don't need a backup, and if the range when towing or the charging network isn't good enough, then that means we need to make the range better, or we need to make the charging network better. It doesn't mean we need to fall back on traditional traditional methods of transport, because in the 3 to 5 year timeline, sure, there's going to be plenty of gas stations around for you to refill at, but Tesla's goal is to eliminate the need for the internal combustion engine at all, which means they're going to keep growing their supercharger network and likely start working on some more pull-through charging stations. And of course, they want to accelerate the speed at which you can charge your car, I'm sure well above 250 kilowatts, and hopefully one day get to the point where plugging in your car doesn't take much longer than just filling it up with gas now. And of course, they want to get batteries cheaper and cheaper and taking up less space, and like all the benefits they talked about at Battery Day, there's tons of range improvements there, there's tons of cost improvements there. So a company like Tesla that is thinking long term and wants to kill off gas cars entirely, they understand that maybe in the long term, decades from now, gas stations won't have much of a point of sticking around, right? Because if what Tesla said is true and they're able to start making cheaper and cheaper electric cars at $25,000, and I'm sure by the end of this decade they'll be working on sub $20,000 electric cars that still go 300 miles and still have great features, and if that starts becoming the norm, gas stations won't necessarily be profitable to keep selling gas anymore. They might start converting more over to electric, and you may see the gas section of a lot of these convenience stores start to close down just because more and more people are going to be switching to electric. So I understand why people's opinion on Ford making a range extender for the electric pickup kind of depends on your opinion on the future of electric vehicles. Are they going to be taking over the market and dominating within the next 20 to 30 years, or is it going to be more like 100 to 150 years? Depending on how optimistic or pessimistic you are on the subject, it's sort of a short-term or long-term solution. And my personal guess, and you're welcome to disagree, that's fine, but I think that we're going to see kind of an S-curve when it comes to electric vehicles. And once they start reaching decent range for decent price points that start beating that, not just of the cost of ownership, but also the upfront cost of the internal combustion engine competition, that's where you'll see gas stations and more places like that not really keep open because there won't be enough people to keep selling gas to. And then kind of the whole advantage of having that range extender of, hey, I can stop at any gas station, that advantage will start to kind of fall away. And I think Tesla is a little bit ahead of the curve here in knowing that, well, long term, there's not going to be gas on the planet forever. So it doesn't make sense for us to keep siphoning off a little bit more of that infrastructure just so it helps sell current day cars. The truth is, the company that's going to end up making the best EV is the one that's been doing it for the longest and the one that has the cheapest and best performing batteries. So Tesla would rather divert their attention to making supercharging faster and better and making the range of stuff like the Cybertruck better and better so that even when you are towing, you can still go hundreds of miles before you need to stop again and hopefully get to the point where you can pull through at superchargers and plug in quickly. Whereas Ford, it seems like because they're still selling a lot of gas cars and because they know there's such a established infrastructure already for gas stations, might as well just throw the range extender in there, right? Makes life a little bit easier, gets to relax that range anxiety a lot of first owners of electric vehicles might have, knowing that they could fill up at a gas station if they needed to. But honestly, I feel like it's kind of a distorted market in the first place, because if someone really wanted to continue utilizing gas stations and wanted to continue being able to fill up a tank with traditional gasoline if they wanted to, is that type of person really interested in buying an all-electric F-150 in the first place? There might be a little bit of overlap of someone that's like, yeah, I'll buy an electric F-150, but also I would like to put gas in it on occasion. But in my opinion, I feel like there'd be more people that would just swear off the all-electric F-150 if they had doubts about range and they had more range anxiety knowing that these trucks might not be able to go as far as their last ones. So they're just going to keep buying gas trucks anyway. So the small overlap that's there, I suppose because we don't have a lot of the details of this range extender, it makes it somewhat hard to judge. But I like talking about the idea of it anyway. But ultimately, I think a problem that Ford might experience with this drop-in range extender is that obviously when you add an accessory like that to your vehicle, it adds a lot of weight and complexity, and that added weight will hurt the range of the battery pack. So obviously, if you're throwing in more weight so that you can go further, it's going to mean that your battery can't go as far, and larger vehicles, especially pickup trucks, require physically more energy to move. It's just physics, and the more energy required to move, it typically means that these all-electric pickup trucks have to have much, much larger batteries than the typical electric cars we have of today. You know, Model 3 is somewhat smaller, and even the Model Y and other EVs on the market can get away with much smaller battery packs because they're very aerodynamic and they're not that heavy compared to how much weight you're hauling around with a giant electric pickup truck. And when you have all that extra weight that requires all that extra energy, energy, it means that the amount of gas you would have to burn through to produce enough energy to charge the battery in a comparable way. What I'm trying to say is it might not be that efficient. You know, it'd be one thing if they came forward and said, hey, the range extender will be able to take your electric F-150 to around 700 miles. That is when you have a full charge and a full gas tank. Or it could end up coming out and being like, this adds an extra 100 miles, but the added weight reduces your efficiency, so it really ends up adding like 70 miles. And my hope is that this range extender Ford is working on is not a expected backup because they can't figure out how to get the range that good on their current electric F-150 prototypes. If they max out the all-electric mode to be around 300, 400 miles, and they're like, well, other companies are finding ways of making electric pickups go 500 miles, but we don't need that because we got the range extender. So we can just rent that out to people or sell it to people and just keep using gas. Whereas if anyone from Ford who's working on this truck is thinking about it, my advice to you is please don't underestimate the range that Rivian and Tesla is going to be able to achieve with their next generation cells. And you should focus a lot more on reducing the weight and complexity of the battery pack and how much energy you can get out of it and how far that can take the pickup truck, and don't rely super heavily on this range extender to solve all of your long range problems. Because other companies are not going to take that approach, and that means they may have a permanent advantage over you if they're able to figure out how to get battery chemistry and range way more efficient than you are, because you keep falling back on, well, if we need to go further than that, then just throw in the range extender, no problem. It really is a hybrid at that point, not an all-electric vehicle, and in my opinion, it's kind of a cop-out in a short-term solution for those extreme examples. And what Ford and all electric car companies should be thinking about is figuring out how to make electric alternatives better than gas, not just falling back on gas whenever electric falls short. Anywho, those are my opinions on Ford's patent for the range extender, which feels very backwards, but if there's a point I'm missing or you think that it'd be really useful and you'd like it yourself, feel free to let me know. Thank you all for watching. Hope you have an excellent rest of your day. Take care.